The time is 1:15. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here's the news edited by Dhanushka Madhavala and read by Ramesh Perez. First, the headlines. Sri Lanka Tea Board says that an increase of tea production in the country is expected in the second half of the year for the first time in the history. All vehicular movement limited near Kohuvela intersection. The Asia-Oceania Wetland Conference will begin in Colombo on next Monday. A special security arrangements will be made for the Pusan Festival. The National Dengue Prevention Unit says that the spread of dengue has increased in 7 districts in the island. In news overseas, endless Israeli bombing in Gaza as no sign of ceasefire. In sports, Nadal to miss Wimbledon to focus on Olympics. Now the local news in detail. Sri Lanka Tea Board says that an increase of tea production in the country is expected in the second half of the year for the first time in the history. The tea production in the country is higher in the first half than the second half all the time. The highest tea yield was usually reported in the months May and June. The board says that due to the drought and various other reasons, the tea production of the first 6 months have reached drastically this year. The Sri Lanka Tea Board says that the tea production of the first 6 months is around 7 million kilograms. These details were revealed at the progress review meeting of the Sri Lanka Tea Board held under the patronage of Minister Mahinda Amaraweera yesterday. The official said that due to several reasons, including good weather, the increase of applying fertilizer for the tea estates and the governmental subsidy of 1,200 million rupees to the tea sector, the tea production of the country will be increased in the second half of the country for the first time in the history. All vehicular movement will be limited near the Kohuvela intersection from tomorrow due to the ongoing construction work of the Kohuvela flyover. The construction work is expected to last for 2 months. Thus, motorists are advised to use alternate routes to avoid inconvenience during this period. Additionally, the police say that the entry of heavy vehicles travelling towards the Kohuvela bridge has been temporarily halted. The first Wetland Link International Asia-Oceania Conference 2024 will be held from the 17th to the 21st of June at the Desaru Park in Battaramulla. The event will be organized by the Sri Lanka Land Development Corporation under the Urban Development and Housing Ministry. Nearly 100 representatives from 15 countries will participate in the event. Wetlands and wetland centers for eco-friendly tourism is the theme of this year's conference. The aim of the conference is to promote and develop cooperation in the conservation and sustainable management of wetlands. The conference will begin under the patronage of Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena on the 17th of June. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
A comprehensive banking services package with a branded checkbook as well as debit and credit card exclusively for you.
Continuing with more local news. Ambassadors of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria to Sri Lanka, Ali Akue, recently met Speaker Mahinda Apapewardene in Parliament. Attention of both parties was focused on strengthening the relations between the two countries, and the Algerian ambassador stated that they expect to establish the Sri Lanka-Algeria Parliamentary Friendship Association. The establishment of trade relations between the two countries through Sri Lanka's tea, cinnamon and garment industries was also discussed. Meanwhile, attention was also paid regarding the relations pertaining to the tourism sector. The police say that special security arrangements will be made for the Pusan Festival. Deputy Inspector General of Police Nihal Taldua says that more than 300,000 police officers will be deployed in this regard. Lifeguards will be deployed near the tanks and rivers in the crowded areas. The police request the devotees to be careful while bathing in rivers and tanks. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka Dengue Prevention Unit says that the spread of dengue has increased in 7 districts in the island. The unit says that the dengue spread has been increased in Colombo, Jaffna, Gampaha, Kalutara, Galle, Kandy and Kurunegala districts. More than 26,000 dengue patients have been reported from the island so far this year. The highest number of cases was reported from the Western Province. Nearly 10,000 dengue patients were reported from the Western Province alone. The Sri Lanka Dengue Prevention Unit requests the public to clean the surroundings to stop the spread of dengue mosquitoes. And it also says that it is important to destroy the mosquito breeding grounds. And that concludes local news.
Elevate your life with People's Bank Excelsior. A comprehensive banking services package with a branded checkbook as well as debit and credit card exclusively for you.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
Moving on to the main news story. The President's Media Division said the Minister of Education, Susil Premajayanta, has announced that 2,500 new teacher appointments for national schools are scheduled for July 3rd. Arrangements have been made to recruit 2,100 teachers for subjects including chemistry, physics, biology, mathematics, technology, and foreign languages. Additionally, 500 teachers will be appointed based on the results of the 2021 English Medium Advanced Diploma Examination, the Minister said. Minister Premajayanta emphasized that these appointments will significantly reduce the issue of teacher shortages in national schools. To further address the shortage of English medium teachers, retired English medium teachers are invited to apply for contract-based positions, the Minister said. And that was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
And in Watchlight, local matchbox manufacturers claim that their factories are on the verge of closing down and they are currently in a critical situation due to the imports of low-quality gas lighters. Environmentalists also claim that the low-quality gas lighters imported in bulk are causing significant environmental pollution after being discarded once the gas runs out. It was reported that a large number of low-income families are working in a matchbox manufacturing company in Kundasale, Kandy. And that was Watchlight.
Coming up, World News.
Moving on to the bulletin of World News, first the headlines. Endless Israeli bombing in Gaza as no sign of ceasefire. Trump visits Capitol Hill for the first time since January 6th riot. And wild horses return to Kazakh plain after centuries. Now the world news in detail. Israeli helicopter gunships attack drones and warplanes strike Rafah as Palestinian fighters engage Israeli troops in running street battles. President Joe Biden said he did not expect to see a Gaza ceasefire deal in the near future. Responding to reporters who asked if a truce would be reached soon, Biden said no, adding, "I haven't lost hope." At least 14 Palestinians were killed following Israeli airstrikes on residential buildings in northern Gaza City. Hezbollah launches a major drone and rocket attack targeting military bases in Israel's north, and Israeli forces responded with deadly bombing in southern Lebanon as fears grew. The border clashes descend into all-out war. At least 37,232 people killed and 85,037 wounded in Israel's war on Gaza since October 7th. The death toll in Israel from Hamas's attacks stands at 1,139, with dozens of people still held captive in Gaza. Donald Trump has returned to Capitol Hill to meet Republicans in his first visit since the riot by supporters of his at Congress 3 years ago. The presumptive Republican nominee in November's presidential election delivered a message of unity, promising to work out any lingering differences within the party. Later in the day, the former president met with an association of 200 corporate leaders. Nancy Pelosi, the former Democratic House Speaker, said in a statement that Trump was the instigator of an insurrection, returning to the scene of the crime. The visit comes a fortnight after Trump's criminal conviction for falsifying business records in his hush money trial in New York. He arrived at a Republican office building near the U.S. Capitol building on Thursday morning, passing a small crowd of protesters holding signs with slogans including "Failed coup" and "Democracy forever, Trump never." Endangered wild horses have returned to the golden steppe of Kazakhstan for the first time in at least 200 years, after decades-long efforts. The airlifts of 7 Przewalski horses from Europe to the Central Asian country took place in early June in an operation run by Prague Zoo. Researchers told the BBC that the horses are already doing well 2 weeks in, roaming around the plains and even beginning the mating process. Zoo officials say it's a triumph of generations of conservation work. While the horses have been slowly reintroduced to Mongolia and China in recent decades, this operation marks the first time they are back in Kazakhstan. The Przewalski's horse is the last wild horse species on the planet, named after Russian explorer Nikolai Przewalski, who was the first to identify the horse for the European science community. Back to the headlines of the world news. Endless Israeli bombing in Gaza as no sign of ceasefire. Trump visits Capitol Hill for the first time since January 6th riot. And wild horses return to Kazakh plains after centuries. And that was world news.
Development news.
In development news, the first ever Ratnapura International Gem and Jewellery Exhibition 2024, organized and presented by the National Gem and Jewellery Authority, will be held from the 29th of June to the 1st of July at the Grand Silver Ray Hotel in Palmadulla. This year's exhibition is set to play a critical role in achieving Sri Lanka's target of $2 billion in gem and jewellery exports by 2025. Chairman and CEO of the National Gem and Jewellery Authority, Viraj De Silva, says that this will cement Ratnapura's status as a premier sourcing city for high-quality gems. The event also aims to highlight the region's rich gem heritage to the world and create new economic opportunities for the region. With a history spanning over a millennium, Ratnapura's gem industry is a cornerstone of Sri Lanka's economy, and the Ratnapura International Gem and Jewellery Exhibition 2024 will honor this legacy with a spectacular array of events and displays. And that was Development News.
Moving on with sports news.
And in sports, it's tennis. Two-time champion Rafael Nadal will not play at Wimbledon this year in order to focus on the Olympics in Paris. The 38-year-old Spaniard said he will compete in a clay court event in Bastard, Sweden, as preparations for the Olympic tennis tournament, which begins on the 27th of July. Wimbledon, where Nadal won in 2008 and 2010, starts on the 1st of July. Nadal, a 22-time Grand Slam champion, said he was saddened to be missing the great atmosphere of Wimbledon, which will always be in my heart. Following his first-round exit at the French Open last month, Nadal said returning to the clay at Roland Garros at the Olympics was now his main target. And that was sports news.
Go ekaktiana youth ekata life eke change ekata niyameta set wenna as wahagena dakapu hina habe karanna youth ekata niyameta set wenna friendship eka menna.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Moving on to business news. After a lapse of 4 years, arrangements have been made to hold the Sri Lanka Festival again on a grand scale in Japan tomorrow, the day after, at Yoyogi Park in Tokyo. The Sri Lanka Japan Business Council, which organizes this festival, said that after 4 years, the annual Sri Lanka Festival, which was stopped due to various reasons, will be held on grand scale in Japan. The Sri Lanka Festival is the biggest Sri Lankan event in Japan, where thousands of Sri Lankans living in Japan meet once a year. Besides, many Japanese people are keen on visiting the festival and associating with Sri Lankans. And that was Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekaktiana youth ekata life eke change ekata niyameta set wenna as wahagena dakapu hina habe karanna youth ekata niyameta set wenna friendship eka menna.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Moving on to the economic news, the Executive Committee of Ceylon Association of Shipping Agents toured the Hambantota International Port last week. The visit was to strengthen relations between Ceylon Association of Shipping Agents and HIP, foster collaboration and explore future opportunities the port held for Sri Lanka's shipping and logistics sector. A presentation outlining the port's current progress, industrial park activities, refinery project in collaboration with Sinopec, and anticipated business growth was made to the visiting delegates by Bindu Ranaseka, Commercial and Marketing Deputy General Manager of Hambantota International Port Group. And that was economic news.
Weather report.
And finally, moving on to the weather report. Several spells of showers will occur in the western, Sabaragamu and northwestern provinces and in the Galle and Matara districts. Showers or thunder showers may occur at few places in the Uva province and in the evening or at night. Strong winds of about 40 to 50 kilometers per hour can be expected at times over the western slopes of the central hills, northern, north central and northwestern provinces and in the Trincomalee, Hambantota and Monaragala districts. The general public is kindly requested to take adequate precautions to minimize damage caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. And that was the weather report. And to conclude this news broadcast, back to the headlines. Sri Lanka Tea Board says that an increase of tea production in the country is expected in the second half of the year for the first time in the history. All vehicular movement limited near Kohula intersection. Asia-Oceania Wetland Conference will begin in Colombo on next Monday. A special security arrangements will be made for the Pusan Festival. The National Dengue Prevention Unit says that the spread of dengue has increased in 7 districts in the island. In foreign news, endless Israeli bombing in Gaza as no sign of ceasefire. And finally in sports, Nadal to miss Wimbledon to focus on Olympics. And with the time just moving on to 31 minutes past 1 o'clock, you're with Radio Sri Lanka, and there we conclude the main news bulletin.